Well, hello. One of the topics I wanted to talk about today in terms of re-enlightening was, well, enlightening in the first place. I mean, one of my goals here is to get us to refocus on fundamentals, the role of liberty, personal responsibility, and understand our choices. What about the last time that such a thing was done, 250 some odd years ago? How did that get started? Well, one of the things that I did in re-enlightening was introduce some East Asian philosophy. And the reason I did this was in part because, yeah, that was part of the process the first time. Although it got weird, as things often did. That's what Orientalism is all about. So what am I talking about? Well, when we look at the use of the term laissez-faire, laissez-passer, it's an interesting term for several reasons. I mean, Adam Smith wound up saying this. How did an ordinary Scotsman wind up using French? Well, he's quoting a man named Francois Quinet. And Quinet had done a study of Qing China. Now, this was during a time when the Qing dynasty was relatively strong. It would be another 100 years or so before the Western powers started making plans for what might happen to China. But at the time, well, first contact was being made. And, well, also things were going on in the West, weren't they? Capitalists were gaining wealth and not really political power. And so there was a lot of pressure for things to change, weren't there? And the examination of the East was, well, it provided some handy excuses. Some of the things they got right, some of the things they got sort of right, but mostly they were making it up as they went. What am I talking about? Well, let's start with the phrase laissez-faire itself. This is a wei wu wei, which is doing without doing, a Taoist concept. Laissez-faire literally means let go. Laissez-faire, laissez-passer, let pass as well. What does that mean exactly? Well, in the process of connecting with Qing China, they learned a whole lot of things about how it operated, what exactly it did. And one of the things that caught their attention was that the Qing were Manchu people. They didn't really take an interest in tight control over much of China. They were one of those empires that saw how diverse the kingdom was and said, hey, you know what? As long as you send the money to Beijing, we're good. And that's what they did, is they let go. Wei wu wei means literally doing without doing. Laissez-faire. And so that was one of the principles. Where the Qing did take an active role in things was in agriculture. Now, all of this was noted by a man named Francois Quinet, who wrote a book called The Despotism of China. Despotism was still a good word. This was in the early days of the Enlightenment, where they didn't get rid of kings yet, but looked at the idea of an enlightened ruler, like, say, Frederick the Great, who was Voltaire's really good friend. Yeah. And what does an enlightened ruler do? So the despotism of China, you have letting go of things in the economy. But they took paid close attention to agriculture, which was something that was not done very much in Europe. Okay? Now, it had been done in the Roman era, but things had gotten slack. So this was why it's being done in the East. That's wonderful. The most important thing that came in, however, was the Confucian concept of promoting based on merit. And again, this was something the Romans did. But the idea is that everybody in Qing China had a ability to rise based on their ability to pass the imperial examinations, which were very important. They didn't have the term meritocracy yet. That would come later. But the idea that people rise through merit, not birth, was a key part of the Enlightenment. You see where this comes from? Now, this read of the Qing dynasty was not exactly accurate. What really happened is the people back in the Netherlands, in England or whatever, and in France, were looking for justification for what they really wanted to do anyways. But they found some inspiration in the East. They found examples of how things were done differently. I drew on this a little bit. We'll see if I wind up falling into the trap of Orientalism. You can let me know. But the basic idea is, well, you need to keep your mind open, right? Truly re-enlightening the world means keeping your mind open, more than anything else. And it's just one of those little topics that I decided not to go down that rabbit hole too much. Maybe in a later book. There's a lot more to say about it, isn't there? All right? I'll see everybody.